My name is Detective Pierce. I don't share my first name. Never have, never will. Names carry weight, and in my line of work, too much weight gets you killed, or worse, forgotten. The call that dragged me into this latest mess came on a Wednesday night, right when I thought I might finally get a quiet drink to myself. The number flashing on the phone wasn't familiar, but I picked up anyway. Something in the pit of my stomach told me not to ignore it. Detective Pierce? The voice was clipped, hesitant, the kind of voice that knew too much about secrets. It's Michael. Michael de Santa. You may not know me, but hell, everybody knows me. At least they think they do. I need your help. Michael de Santa. Retired, at least on paper. Rumors swirled around his name like smoke. A life of crime, a clean getaway, a family too normal to be real. What surprised me wasn't the call, it was the tone. Fear. Real, unfiltered fear. What's the problem? I asked, setting my glass aside. Michael hesitated. It's a house. One I bought up in Vinewood Hills. I thought I'd turn it into an investment property. But something's wrong with it. The workers left, said it wasn't safe. I laughed at them. I don't laugh anymore. Wrong how? I stayed there. One night. Just one. His breath crackled through the line. I don't think it's empty, detective. And I don't mean squatters. That's how it began. The mansion sat crooked on its perch above Vinewood Boulevard, half forgotten among newer glass and steel monsters. Its once white plaster walls sagged beneath ivy, the front steps cracked like broken teeth. Michael stood at the gate when I arrived, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. He didn't look like the man people whispered about, the cool operator, the heist artist turned suburban family man. He looked tired. Like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. You came, he muttered as I walked up. His eyes darted toward the house as if it might overhear us. Inside, the air hit me first. Heavy. Stale. Beneath the rot, there was something else, something metallic, sharp. The foyer spread wide, with a staircase curling upward like a rib cage. Dust blanketed everything, muting the grandeur into a kind of mausoleum stillness. Michael's voice echoed too loudly in the space. It started with lights flickering. Then doors. Things moving. I told myself it was old wiring, wind, the usual excuses. But then the voices came. What kind of voices? Whispers. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes my name. He swallowed. And then I saw them. My family. Amanda, Tracy, Jimmy. Sitting at the dining table like it was a normal night. But when I blinked, they were gone. We moved deeper into the house, my flashlight cutting through the shadows. In the dining room, the long table stood under a tarnished chandelier, chairs pushed back as though guests had risen suddenly. On the far wall, the plaster was stripped down to the beams. My light caught something there, marks carved deep into the wood. Letters. Dates. Names I didn't recognize. Michael stopped beside me, shoving his hands deeper into his pockets. I didn't touch that. None of the workers did. It's just there. The scratches were layered, as though left by dozens of hands over decades. Desperation lived in them, each cut deliberate. Before I could say anything, a sound broke through the silence. A door slammed upstairs, hard enough to rattle the chandelier. Michael jumped. We're the only ones here. I nodded, though my jaw tightened. Let's check. We climbed the stairs, every step groaning under our weight. At the far end of the hallway, one door hung ajar, swaying gently as if someone had just slipped through. Inside, we found what looked like a private theater room. Rows of velvet seats slouched toward a cracked projection screen. In the corner, an old film projector sat silent, its reels draped with dust. "Has this always been here?" I asked. Michael shook his head. "We didn't even clear this room out yet." As if on cue, the projector whirred to life. Dust stirred in the beam of light as grainy black and white images flickered onto the screen. I froze. It was a family dinner. Not any family, Michael's. His wife. His kids. Sitting around a table, heads bowed, their faces too pale, eyes fixed on the camera. Michael's voice cracked. "No. No, that's us. That's..." On screen, the family turned their heads in perfect unison. Toward the door. Toward us. The reel snapped. Darkness swallowed the screen. And in the silence, in the real world, chairs scraped slowly across the floor behind us. Michael bolted first, dragging me with him into the hallway. We didn't stop until we reached the front door, both of us breathing hard. "You saw it," he whispered, his face pale under the porch light. "Tell me you saw it." I said nothing at first, just stared back at the house. Its windows were black pits, watching us, waiting. "I saw it," I finally said. "But I think you've only shown me the opening act." And in my gut I knew Vinewood Hills had just turned into the stage for something more sinister than either of us could explain. The night after our first encounter with the Vinewood house, I barely slept. Not because of the images, though those lingered behind my eyes like burned scars. It was because of Michael's voice, the raw fear inside it, the kind you can't fake. Men like him have faced bullets, betrayal, prison cells, but this had hollowed him out. By the following evening, I found myself back at the gates of that mansion, this time with a plan. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that hauntings, real or imagined, leave evidence. And evidence, like smoke, always clings to something solid. Michael was waiting again, pacing the drive. He stopped when he saw me. "You're back. You asked for help," I reminded him. "That means we see it through. But this time, I want to know everything. How did you find this place?" Michael rubbed the back of his neck, glancing up at the dark silhouette of the house. "Auction. It was repossessed after the last owner disappeared. The realtor said it was a chance to buy history. Thought I'd flip it. Easy money." "History," I echoed. "Whose history?" "That's just it. I can't find records past the 70s. Like the place just appeared one day." I made a mental note. Buildings don't erase themselves. Someone had to bury that past. Inside, the air was heavier than before. The kind of thick that crawls into your lungs and makes you feel like you're drowning on dry land. I set up the gear I'd brought, a tape recorder, a small camera, chalk for marking rooms. Old-school tricks, but effective. Ghosts don't care for new tech. Michael trailed behind me as I drew a crude X on the foyer floor. "Seriously? Chalk? Helps me keep track," I said. "Houses like this, they like to rearrange themselves." He scoffed, but his voice shook. We started upstairs again, this time with intent. The theater room door was closed tight, the projector silent. I stepped in, careful, sweeping the light across the screen. The dust was undisturbed. "Empty," Michael muttered, relieved. That's when the reel at our feet twitched. The same spool of film we'd seen yesterday. Except now, the label had changed. Fresh black ink scrawled across the canister read, "Tonight." Michael cursed under his breath. "That wasn't there." "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." I pocketed the reel. If the house wanted to show us something, I'd rather control when. In the adjacent rooms, things got stranger. The first bedroom was stripped to its bones, walls stained with what looked like water damage. But the bed frame remained, toppled on its side, claw marks gouged into the wood. Michael ran a hand over them, paling. These weren't made by any tool. The second room was worse. Toys scattered across the floor, a dollhouse tucked in the corner. The house inside the dollhouse was an exact replica of the mansion itself, down to the cracked steps and ivy. I bent close, examining the miniature windows. Inside, faint shadows shifted, moving from room to room. I didn't tell Michael what I saw. Downstairs, we reached the kitchen. The air was colder here, breath frosting faintly in the flashlight beam. On the table, plates were laid out again, different than before. Now there were 5 settings. 5? Michael whispered. My family's 4. I frowned, studying the arrangement. The 5th plate was chipped, a crack running through it like a scar. At its center lay a tarnished fork bent into an impossible curve, twisted like it had been clenched too tight in someone's fist. Before I could touch it, the recorder in my coat hissed. I pulled it free. Static crackled, then a voice emerged, thin, broken, but clear enough. Leave, while you still can. Michael backed away, shaking his head. No. No, this isn't happening. But I'd heard something else in that whisper. Not just warning, pleading. Whoever had left that message wasn't trying to scare us. They were begging. I suggested we step outside, clear our heads, but Michael refused. If I leave again, I won't come back. And I need to know what this place wants with me. Places don't want, I said quietly. People do. Dead or alive. We pressed on, into the basement. The stairs creaked under our weight, each step swallowed by a damp chill rising from below. My light cut across stone walls slick with moisture, and rows of shelves lined with jars. At first, I thought it was canned goods. Then I saw the labels. Dates. Names. Each jar cloudy with dark liquid. And inside, small, indistinct shapes that pressed faintly against the glass when the beam hit them. Michael gagged. Jesus Christ! I forced myself to step closer. The nearest jar bore a name carved directly into the glass, Margaret, 1962. A sharp knock echoed from behind us. We spun. The basement door had slammed shut. The jars rattled on their shelves as though stirred by some invisible hand. Liquid bubbled. Shapes inside twitched. I grabbed Michael's arm. Upstairs. Now. We bolted up the steps, shoulder slamming the door open. The house spat us back into the foyer, gasping, the recorder still hissing with static in my pocket. On the porch, Michael doubled over, hands braced on his knees. Tell me you've got answers, he panted. I stared at the mansion, its windows glimmering faintly under the Vinewood moon. Not yet, I admitted. But I've got questions. A lot of them. Starting with why your name, and your family, are already written in this house's story. Michael's head snapped up. What the hell are you talking about? I pulled out the film reel, holding it under the porch light. The ink across its surface had changed again, crawling like fresh handwriting. It no longer said tonight. Now it read Part 2. The house wasn't just showing us things. It was keeping track. The night stretched longer than it should have. Michael insisted on retreating back to his car after the basement incident, and I didn't argue. The house had pushed its weight on us, heavy and deliberate, and if we stayed any longer it would bury us alive in its games. But I didn't go home. Not yet. Instead, I drove into the city, down streets that hummed with neon and late-night chatter, until I found myself at the county records office. The building itself was asleep, lights dim, but I had keys. Too many nights like these had bought me favors, and sometimes debts, from the right clerks. I slipped inside, the hum of the fluorescent bulbs overhead filling the silence. I began digging. Deeds, blueprints, transfer records. The mansion's property file was thin, too thin. Paperwork skipped decades. Ownership changed hands like a baton in a relay race. And every owner? Gone. Some missing, some bankrupt, some vanished into aliases and false trails. The mansion devoured not just families, but entire histories. One note stuck with me. Scribbled in the margin of a deed from 1978. House predates records. Surveyor refused entry. Report missing. Predates records. That meant older than the city's official bones. Older than anyone wanted to admit. By morning, I returned to Vinewood Hills. Michael looked worse, bloodshot eyes, coffee trembling in his hands. I thought about torching it, he confessed. Just burn the whole thing down. Fire doesn't erase history, I said flatly. And if this house really is what I think it is, you'd only be feeding it. He shuddered. So what now? We go back in. The mansion's foyer was colder in daylight, the kind of cold that doesn't fade with the sun. Dust motes swirled like ash in the pale shafts of light cutting through broken blinds. Michael hesitated. You feel that? Yes, I said. It's waiting. We returned to the upstairs hallway, back to the theater. The projector sat exactly as we'd left it, real silent, the screen blank. But the reel I'd taken, **part 2***, had grown heavier in my pocket. Against my better judgment, I slid it into place and turned the crank. The film sputtered, flickered to life. Grainy images unfolded. It was the mansion again, but older. People in black and white attire, a grand party. The camera drifted past them like a ghost, capturing stiff smiles and darting eyes. Then the picture changed. A long table. 5 plates like the ones in the kitchen. 4 were filled with food. The 5th, empty, cracked. At the head of the table sat a man in a dark suit. His face was blurred, but his eyes, God, those eyes, burned bright, twin lanterns in the grain. The film skipped, jumped, and suddenly the camera was moving toward the staircase, climbing, just as we had. The view stopped at the landing, turned slowly, toward the theater. Toward us. The reel snapped again. Michael staggered back, pale. It knew. It was watching us before we even got here. Not just watching, I murmured, the weight in my chest growing heavier. It's recording. We left the theater and moved toward the end of the hall. The last door, locked before, now stood ajar. Inside was a study, walls lined with shelves that sagged under books swollen from damp. The air smelled of ink and mildew. On the desk, another reel waited. Its label scrawled in the same crawling hand, Part 3. Michael swore, grabbing it. Why us? Why me? Before I could answer, a sound rose from the walls. Whispering, layered and low, growing louder, overlapping until it became a cacophony of voices. My light trembled across the shelves, catching words etched into the spines of the books. Names. Not titles, not authors. Names. I recognized some, those from the jars in the basement. Margaret. Robert. Elaine. All carved into the books like epitaphs. And near the bottom shelf, Michael's name. Bold, fresh, as if written hours ago. His face went blank. No. No, this is some kind of trick. It's no trick, I said, though my own voice was tight. This house doesn't just trap people. It writes them down. Keeps them. The whispers rose into laughter. We didn't wait. We tore out of that room, down the stairs, and into the front hall. The chalk mark I'd drawn was gone. The X erased, the floorboards spotless. The house had shifted. The front door no longer opened onto the porch. Instead, when I wrenched it open, we were staring into the theater again, the projector humming, the empty screen waiting. Michael slammed it shut, panic bursting out of him. "We're trapped!" I steadied him with a hand, though my pulse thundered in my ears. "No. Not yet. There's always a way out." "Then tell me where." The answer hung heavy in my mouth. I didn't want to say it, but the truth was undeniable. "The house wants us to finish the story. That's the way out." Michael stared at me, horror dawning. "And if we don't?" I glanced back at the door, the faint flicker of the screen bleeding through its cracks. "Then we become part of the story. Forever." The reel in my pocket pulsed with weight, like a beating heart. Part 3. And I knew, as much as I hated it, that the house wasn't going to stop until it told us everything. Or until it consumed us whole. We didn't sleep. Sleep was impossible in a house that bled shadows and stitched names into its walls. Instead, we sat at the base of the stairs, the reel of Part 3 clutched in Michael's shaking hands. Every door we opened now looped back to the same spaces. Kitchen. Theater. Study. No porch, no driveway, no city skyline beyond the windows, only fog pressing close against the glass, as though the world outside had been erased. The house wasn't just haunted. It was alive. And it wanted us to keep watching. Michael finally broke the silence. "If it wants us to finish the story, fine. Let's finish it. But if this kills me," his voice cracked, brittle, "you get my kids out. You hear me? You'll get out." I lied. We threaded the new reel into the projector. The screen flared with grainy light, bathing the theater in pale glow. Images swam into focus, this time not of parties or staircases, but of a room we hadn't yet seen. A conservatory. Glass walls, overgrown plants curling up iron trellises, sunlight filtering through dirty panes. A fountain at the center, cracked and dry. The camera drifted toward the fountain. Inside it lay 5 objects: a child's shoe, a tarnished locket, a pistol, a key, and a Rio canister. The film cut to black. Michael glanced at me. "So where is it?" We left the theater and moved cautiously through the house, searching. The halls stretched unnaturally long, ceilings warping above us. At last, after what felt like hours, we reached a pair of glass doors shrouded in dust. The conservatory. It matched the film perfectly. Vines crept across cracked windows, leaves brushing against our shoulders. The fountain stood in the center, dry and hollow. And inside it, the objects. Exactly as shown. Michael knelt, lifting the pistol first. "Empty," he muttered. The cylinder rattled. No bullets. Just weight, a ghost of power. The locket contained a faded photograph of a woman whose face had been scratched away. The shoe was small, dirt-caked. The key bore no teeth, just a blank shaft of metal. And the Rio canister, labeled in the same curling hand. Part 4. I felt it then, the temperature dropping, shadows lengthening even as the sun outside struggled through the glass. The vines began to move. Slowly at first, then with purpose, slithering down the trellises. "Run!" I hissed. The tendrils lashed out, curling around Michael's wrist. He shouted, yanking back, the pistol clattering to the floor. I hacked at the vines with my flashlight, metal striking green flesh, but the plant only tightened. Michael's face went white. "It's pulling me in." I grabbed the reel from the fountain, tucking it under my arm. The vines writhed, dragging Michael toward the fountain's hollow center. For a moment, I thought the stone itself might split open, swallowing him whole. Don't fight it! I shouted. Move with it, this thing feeds on struggle. He froze, then forced himself limp. The vines slackened, confused, and I seized the moment to rip him free. We stumbled back through the conservatory doors, slamming them shut behind us. On the other side, the vines scraped against the glass, their shadows twitching like skeletal fingers. Michael leaned against the wall, gasping. It wanted me. It wanted me down there. It wants all of us, I said grimly. The reel in my hand seemed to vibrate. Part 4. We made our way back to the theater, though every step felt heavier, as if the house itself resented our escape. The projector was already running when we entered, the screen blank but glowing, waiting. Michael shook his head. I can't do this again. Every time it gets worse. I placed the reel on the table beside him. It's not about us wanting to. It's about survival. The house set the rules. He looked at me, hollow-eyed. And if the last reel is just us? I had no answer. So I loaded part 4. The screen came alive. This time, the footage wasn't of rooms or objects. It was of people. 3 figures sat in the mansion study. Their faces blurred, their voices a low murmur, but their movements unmistakable, watching, waiting, writing. The camera panned to the shelves, where hundreds of names had been carved into the spines of books. Then the lens turned toward the floor. 2 more names etched there, glowing faintly, fresh and raw. Michael. And mine. The film burned out. The reel snapped, smoke rising from the projector. The theater plunged into silence. Michael clutched his head, trembling. We're already written in. We're already part of it. Not yet, I forced out, though the words rang hollow. We still have one more part. But in my gut I knew the truth. The house had already chosen us. And the final reel wouldn't show us an ending. It would show us how we stayed. The house didn't let us leave. Every hallway circled back to the theater, no matter how far we pushed. The projector loomed like a pulsing heart, the last reel waiting where it had not been before, a black canister with no label, no handwriting. Just emptiness. Michael refused to touch it. His hands trembled as if the air itself burned his skin. This is it. The last one. We don't put it in, maybe it ends. Or maybe it never lets us out, I said. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. The house creaked, the projector hummed, and somewhere deep inside the walls, we heard the faint crackle of film already turning. It didn't matter what we wanted. The house wanted us to see. With a sick feeling in my gut, I lifted the reel and fed it into the projector. The film began in silence. No sound, no score. Just the house, viewed from outside, bathed in moonlight. Its windows were black, its walls warped as if bending toward the lens. The camera drifted closer. Inside the glass, shapes moved. Not people exactly, outlines, shadows of those who had walked the halls before. Their faces were indistinct, smeared like wet paint. And then there we were. Michael, standing in the theater. Me, seated with my head in my hands. The camera had us pinned, as if the house had always been filming us, always waiting. I staggered back. It's showing now. It's showing us. Michael swore under his breath, his face slick with sweat. This is how it ends. The screen flickered. The perspective shifted, and suddenly the film showed a door, massive, iron-bound, half hidden behind the theater's rear wall. Neither of us had seen it before. But as the projector rattled, the wall behind us groaned. The plaster cracked. And the door appeared. Michael turned to me, voice breaking. Do we open it? We don't have a choice. The iron door shrieked as we forced it open. Beyond was a staircase, narrow and steep, spiraling downward into blackness. The air smelled of dust, rot, and something else, celluloid, sharp and chemical, like burned film. We descended, each step echoing like a gunshot. At the bottom was a vast chamber. The walls were lined with reels stacked floor to ceiling, thousands upon thousands of them. Each reel bore a name. Some scratched away, some still glowing faintly, like dying embers. At the center of the room stood a single projector. Its lens glowed with pale light, cycling through reels on its own. And on the nearest stack, 2 reels lay freshly placed. Michael. Me. Michael backed away, shaking his head violently. No. No, this isn't happening. I'm not part of this. The reels shifted, clattering as if alive. The film already began threading itself into the central projector. I grabbed his arm. We can't stop it. But maybe we can change it. He blinked at me, wild-eyed. How? I lifted the empty canister, the final reel we'd loaded upstairs. If it's writing us, maybe we can write it back. The chamber trembled as the film began to roll. On the screen appeared the house, collapsing inward, devouring itself. Rooms folding like paper, hallways twisting, windows shattering to reveal nothing but void. Then it cut to us, 2 figures standing in the chamber, reels glowing in our hands. The projector sputtered, light flaring so bright it seared our vision. Michael screamed, throwing his reel into the machine. Without thinking, I hurled mine after it. The screen blazed white. The walls shrieked. The reels burned, names peeling away in streams of ash. The house howled as if alive, a final groan that rattled our bones. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing outside. The mansion was gone. No fog, no vines, no endless corridors. Just empty hillside beneath a blood-orange sky. Michael lay a few feet away, unconscious but breathing. The air smelled of smoke and salt, as though something vast had been burned clean. I shook him awake. His eyes fluttered open, dazed. We made it? I think so. We staggered down the hill in silence, afraid to look back. Later, when I finally dared, I found something in my pocket. A scrap of film, scorched at the edges, curling between my fingers. No images, no sound. Just one word burned into the celluloid. End.